I sat at the kitchen table until midnight. 3 place settings. The good china, the one my late wife Helen always saved for holidays. A roast that took me 4 hours to cook with these arthritic hands. A store-bought cake, because I can't bake like she could, but I tried. I wrote, "Happy 74th," on it myself with a tube of blue icing. Nobody came. Not one of my 3 sons. Not a phone call. Not a text. Not even a 2-word message that said, "Happy birthday." I sat there, staring at that cake, and something inside me, something that had been cracking for years, finally broke clean in two. But the forgotten birthday wasn't the worst part. Not even close. What I discovered 3 days later made me realize my sons hadn't just forgotten me. They'd been planning against me. And they had no idea that I already knew. You're probably wondering how a 74-year-old man ends up alone on his birthday, sitting at a table set for 4 in a house he built with his own hands. Let me tell you, because this story, it's not just about a birthday. It's about what happens when you give your entire life to your children and they decide you're worth nothing. My name is Arthur Hollis. I was a building contractor for 41 years in a small city in upstate New York. I built homes, strip malls, a church, the elementary school my boys attended. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. I earned every single dollar with my back, my knees, and my word. My wife Helen and I raised 3 boys. David, the oldest, now 51. Michael, the middle one, 48. And Kevin, the youngest, 44. Helen passed 6 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Fast. Brutal. She was diagnosed in March. Gone by July. I held her hand every night. I slept on the hospital floor. I promised her I'd keep the family together. "Watch over them, Arthur," she whispered to me near the end. "They're going to need you." I nodded and squeezed her fingers. I didn't cry in front of her. I saved that for the parking garage, where I screamed into my steering wheel like a man losing his mind. Because I was, after she passed. I poured everything I had into my sons. I helped David with the down payment on his house, $42,000. I co-signed Michael's business loan when no bank would touch him. I watched Kevin's 2 kids 3 days a week so he and his wife could both work. I didn't ask for anything back. I thought love was supposed to be enough, but I didn't know what was already happening behind my back. The first sign should have been obvious. About 2 years after Helen died, David's wife, Sharon, started making comments. Small ones, like little needles slipped under the skin. "Dad, you really don't need this big house anymore, do you?" she said one Thanksgiving. "Must be lonely rattling around in here by yourself." I laughed it off. "This house has good bones," I said. "Just like me." She didn't laugh. Then Michael started calling less. Once a week became once a month, then every few months. When I asked him why, he said, "Dad, I'm just busy. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was, because when my father was alive, I called him every Sunday without fail, even when I was pouring concrete at 6 in the morning. Even when Helen and I were fighting, I always called. Kevin was the one I thought would never change. He was the baby, the soft one. Helen used to say Kevin had my hands, but her heart. But then Kevin's wife, Lisa, got involved, and everything shifted. It started subtly. Lisa began helping me organize my finances. She said it so sweetly. "Dad, you shouldn't have to worry about all these bills and accounts. Let me help." I said, "Lisa, I've managed my money for 50 years. I think I'll be all right." She smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile someone gives you when they've already decided you're a fool. A few weeks later, Kevin came to me and said, "Dad, Lisa and I were talking. Maybe you should add one of us to your bank account, just in case something happens to you." "In case what happens?" I asked. "I don't know, a stroke, a fall. What if you can't get to the bank?" "Then I'll call you and you can drive me." He looked annoyed, like I was being difficult. But here's what I need you to understand. At that point, I still loved them completely. I still trusted them. I thought they were looking out for me. I had no idea they'd already had a meeting about me, all 3 of them, without me, and what they discussed at that meeting would have destroyed me if I'd found out then. But I didn't find out then. I found out much later. And by the time I did, I was ready. My 74th birthday fell on a Saturday in October. The leaves were turning. Helen always loved the fall. She used to say the trees were putting on their best clothes before saying goodbye. I called David a week before. I'm cooking a roast on Saturday for my birthday. You coming? Saturday? Let me check with Sharon. He never called back. I called Michael. Hey, Mike, birthday dinner at the house this Saturday. Oh, we might have a thing. I'll let you know. He didn't let me know. I called Kevin. Kev, it's Dad. Saturday. My birthday. Will you come? I'll try, Dad. Lisa's got yoga and the kids have soccer, but I'll try. He didn't try. Saturday came. I cooked the roast, set the table, put on a clean shirt, even shaved twice because the first time I missed a spot. By 8 o'clock, no one had come. By 9, no one had called. By 10, I put the food away. By 11, I threw the cake in the trash. By midnight, I sat in Helen's old chair and talked to her. I kept my promise. I said, I watched over them. But Helen, I don't think they want me watching anymore. That was the loneliest night of my life. But it wasn't the night that changed everything. That came 3 days later. The following Tuesday, I drove to my accountant's office for a routine meeting. Frank Myers. Known him for 30 years. He handled my taxes, my retirement planning, everything. When I walked in, Frank looked uncomfortable. He closed the door behind me. He didn't offer coffee. That was unusual. Frank always offered coffee. Arthur, sit down, he said. I need to show you something. He turned his computer screen toward me. Last month, someone requested a full copy of your financial portfolio. Asset list, property deeds, retirement accounts, estimated net worth. I stared at him. Who requested it? Frank swallowed. Kevin, he said you authorized it. He had a signed letter. My blood went cold. Frank, I never signed anything. Frank nodded slowly. I didn't think so. The signature looked off to me. That's why I made a copy of the request before releasing the documents. He handed me a manila folder. Inside was a letter, typed, not handwritten, with my name forged at the bottom. It authorized Kevin Hollis to receive full disclosure of all financial records, property holdings, and insurance policies associated with Arthur R. Hollis. My youngest son had forged my signature, but that wasn't the part that made me sick. At the bottom of the letter, there was a note, handwritten, in Kevin's handwriting. It said, need full breakdown before family meeting on November 5th. Want to discuss power of attorney options. November 5th. That was 2 weeks away. They weren't planning a birthday dinner. They were planning a takeover. And they didn't even bother to invite me. I sat in Frank's office for a long time. My hands weren't shaking from weakness. They were shaking from anger. What do you want to do? Frank asked, how much am I worth, Frank? All of it. The house, the accounts, the pension, the land. Frank pulled up the numbers. Conservatively, about $2.4 million. Arthur, the house alone is worth $800,000. The 2 lots on Ridgedale that you never developed, those have appreciated significantly. And your retirement accounts, life insurance, savings, $2.4 million. My sons had no idea. They thought I was a retired contractor living on a pension and Social Security. They thought the house was the prize. They didn't know about the land. They didn't know about the savings I'd quietly built for 40 years. They didn't know about the life insurance policy Helen and I bought in 1987 that had matured into something substantial. They thought I was a helpless old man sitting in a big house. They were very, very wrong. Frank, I said, I want you to connect me with the best estate attorney in the county, not a family lawyer, an estate litigation specialist. Frank picked up the phone. I know exactly who to call. That phone call was the beginning of the end, but not for me. The attorney's name was Catherine Marsh, mid-50s, sharp eyes. She didn't waste a word. I sat in her office and told her everything, the forged letter, the financial request, the mention of power of attorney, the forgotten birthday, the years of slow dismissal. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned forward, Arthur, do you have an existing will? Yes, drafted 12 years ago. Everything split equally between my 3 sons. And you want to change it? I paused. I thought about Helen. I thought about the promise I made. I thought about David borrowing $42,000 and never mentioning it again. I thought about Michael ignoring my calls. I thought about Kevin forging my name on a legal document. Yes, I said, I want to change everything. Catherine nodded. Before we do that, I want to make sure you're protected. If they're pursuing power of attorney, we need to act fast. I'll file a preemptive legal declaration of competency. We'll have you evaluated by an independent physician. That way, if they try to claim you're unfit, they wouldn't do that, I said. She looked at me with a sad kind of patience. Mr. Hollis, they forged your signature. They're meeting behind your back. Yes, they would absolutely do that. That sentence hit me harder than anything. My own sons, planning to declare me incompetent. I signed the paperwork that afternoon, but I wasn't done, not by a long shot. Over the next 10 days, I moved quietly and carefully. Catherine filed the competency declaration. A doctor evaluated me, mentally sharp, physically stable. The paperwork was ironclad. Then I rewrote my will. I removed David, Michael, and Kevin entirely. Every asset, every account, every dollar. Who would you like to name as your beneficiary? Catherine asked. I told her, and even she raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. I'll tell you who I chose. But not yet, because what happened next, at the so-called family meeting on November 5th, is something I need you to hear. I wasn't supposed to know about the meeting, but I showed up anyway. Kevin's house. 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. I pulled into the driveway and saw all 3 of their cars already parked. I walked to the front door and rang the bell. Lisa opened the door. Her face went white. Dad, what were you doing here? I heard there was a family meeting, I said. And last time I checked, I'm still family. She stammered something and stepped aside. I walked into the dining room. David, Michael, and Kevin were seated at the table. Papers were spread out. A laptop was open. And sitting at the head of the table, my seat, if anyone had bothered to remember, was a man in a gray suit I'd never seen before. Who's this? I asked. Kevin stood up slowly. Dad, this is a financial advisor. We just wanted to plan my future without me. I said, silence. David cleared his throat. Dad, don't be dramatic. We're trying to help. Help with what? I asked. I didn't ask for help. Michael wouldn't even look at me. The financial advisor shifted in his chair. Mr. Hollis, your sons are simply concerned about. About what? My money? Nobody answered. I pulled a chair from the corner, sat at the table, and sat down. Well, I said, since we're all here, let me share a few things. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a folder. First, Kevin, this is the letter you sent to my accountant, with my forged signature. That's a felony in this state, by the way. Kevin's face drained of color. Second, David, you borrowed $42,000 from me 9 years ago. No repayment. No acknowledgement. You told Sharon it was a bonus from work. David's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sharon, standing in the doorway, stared at him. Third, Michael, you stopped calling me after I told you I wouldn't co-sign another loan. 14 months of silence, because I said no once. Michael looked at the table. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I said very calmly, none of you came to my birthday. None of you called. And while I sat alone at a table set for 4, you were planning how to take control of my finances. Kevin leaned forward. Dad, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I stood up. You should know, I've already filed a legal declaration of competency. A judge has reviewed my medical and cognitive evaluation. You cannot pursue power of attorney. And as of last week, I paused. I've changed my will. The room went completely still. The house, the accounts, the land on Ridgedale. Yes, Kevin, the land you didn't know about, the retirement fund, the insurance policy, all of it, $2.4 million. Kevin whispered, 2.4, None of it is going to any of you. David shot to his feet. Dad, you can't be serious. Sit down, David. He sat. You forgot my birthday. But more than that, you forgot me. You forgot who raised you. You forgot who built this family. You forgot the man who held your mother's hand while she died and then held yours at the funeral. My voice cracked, just for a moment, but I steadied myself. Helen asked me to watch over you. I did, for 6 years. But she also would have told me something else if she lived long enough to see this. I picked up my folder. She would have told me to respect myself. I walked to the door. Kevin called out, Dad, who did you leave it to? I stopped. I didn't turn around. Margaret. The room erupted. Margaret is my sister. She's 71 years old. She lives in a small apartment in Syracuse. She worked as a school lunch lady for 30 years. She never married. She never had kids. She never asked me for a dime. But every single Sunday for 6 years, Margaret called me. How are you holding up, Arthur? She drove 2 hours to bring me soup when I had pneumonia. She sent me a birthday card every October with a $5 bill inside, the same way she'd done since I was 10 years old. On the morning of my 74th birthday, while my 3 sons were silent, Margaret left a voicemail. Happy birthday, big brother. I love you. Mom and Dad would be proud. Helen would be proud. I'll call you tonight. She did call. We talked for an hour. That's why Margaret gets everything. Not because she earned it. Not because she asked for it. Because she showed up every single time. In the weeks that followed, each of my sons tried to contact me. David sent a long email for paragraphs of explanation, not one sentence of apology. Michael showed up at my door with a bottle of whiskey. Can we just forget this happened? He asked. I said, no, Michael, we can't. Kevin sent Lisa. She sat in my kitchen and cried. She said she was sorry. She said Kevin was sorry. She said they just wanted to make sure I was taken care of. I looked at her and said, Lisa, you forged my name on a legal document. That's not care. That's theft. She left without another word. I didn't change the will back. I didn't waver. I didn't feel guilty. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like myself again.